leave a mark. One that makes you proud. One that forces you to lie to your next lover about how it got there. I want you to be compelled to sleep in it. To speak my name awkward, unbelieving of half the shit you let me do to you. I've got a briefcase full of toys. A mouth aching to teeth, hands yearning to claw into you, and I am feeling some type of way today. I'm feeling like still and stilettos. Like look but don't touch as punishment. Like crops and spankings as rewards. I'm feeling like being worshipped. Like watching you draw holy water from this temple with a collar around your throat. My hands firmly against the leash from head to taint, you belong to me. For the next 48 hours, the word no isn't in your vocabulary. And you should know, I'm not as innocent as I pretend. Not as shy as I let on. That I can be very house of cards when I want to. Very clear and calculated. Meacham hunter. Smile while I devour, you should know. There is a mirror in the bathroom with your name on it to remind you who you are when we are finished. When we are finished, your English proficiency will be reduced to primal. There will be a constant high-pitched ringing in your ears, and you will need a physical therapist to teach your ass how to walk again. And you will revel in every minute of your recovery. A bittersweet reminder of the power of small details, because baby, you don't listen well. But don't you worry, because I came here to teach.
I'm Jet Setting Jasmine. I'm a co-owner of Jet Setting Jasmine, which is an adult entertainment and education company. I'm also a co-owner of Royal Fetish Films, which is an adult entertainment company, all the way from fetish training to hardcore and romantic porn. I'm also a mother of two. I am a program manager for one of our very important government agencies, which I will not share with you the name of that, and also an owner of Body Altitudes Health and Fitness Studio.
We coin it as a Pop Erotica event, but it's to me there's obviously a lot more to it than just presenting eroticism to the world. We're trying to bring a space where, for me, that women can be free. Not just women, because we do have a male audience, but for my personal focus, I do focus a lot on women being free in their expression and exploration of sexuality.
For me, it's really an opportunity to bring sexuality out of the closet and more into the mainstream, where people can express themselves sexually and have that be normalized. Whether it's, you know, that you're from the LGBT community, or whether you are into BDSM, or whether you're into different types of relationships. Just in general, people's sexuality, and also being free with your body. The sweet spot for me is about bringing that into people's lives and making them comfortable with themselves.
I love being naked, honestly, and I do it because I'm still exploring my own sexuality, but also because I want to use this as my platform to speak for women's rights, especially women of color, because that's one of my big focuses while I'm doing this. Yes, I absolutely love to dance and I love entertaining because it's so much fun, even though I like to hide after the show. But I have women that come to me afterwards and they tell me how they wish they could be brave, and they wish if they had my body they could walk around naked all day. And it's like, I'm trying to teach you that I'm not the standard. I want you to love the way you are. I want you to have the courage that I have to do what I do. Even if you don't get on stage and wear a thong and pasties, like I want you to walk out of here feeling like I'm a woman of color and I'm beautiful and I love my shape and I can move freely in this world.
I'm from Haitian background. Both my parents immigrated here from Haiti, so I grew up in a very Haitian household, eating Haitian food. Also grew up very religious. My family is Seventh-day Adventist, so I went to Seventh-day Adventist schools all my life, from elementary to all the way through college. After college, I was no longer Seventh-day Adventist. I guess, if we want to label things, I would call myself an atheist. But I grew up in a very sheltered environment, but my father's an educator, and my mother has always run her own business. So I grew up in an environment that was always very, how shall I say, very inquisitive and very free, despite being very sheltered. I'm not sure how to say that, but because my father and my mother, they're both very, as I said, educators, but they're also both very curious about life. And so we talked about everything, except for sex.
So I grew up in the South in a really small town in Virginia called Smithville, Virginia, like dirt road, drive to your mailbox, like literally where the house that I grew up in and spent my adolescence was a home that, it was the first one in the development. So like it was like woods around and like snakes would find their ways into the home, like just real country girl. My parents raised us Christian. We were always in church. Both my parents were raised Catholic. My mom is from Philadelphia, my father from New York, actually. They met in Florida, long story about that, because my dad was in the military. So the whole thing, I was preaching to everybody. I was going to save everybody. I was that person, like, preaching and no, you can't do this. I was going to wait till marriage. As you can see, that didn't really happen. I went to college. Went to college at VCU, so only like an hour and a half away from home, and became not really that religious. I mean, spirituality is still very important to me, and there are definitely things in the Christian practice that I still believe in and hold to, but overall, definitely, if I had to label myself, I would say I am a spiritualist, and that freaks my parents out, because my dad believes that he believes that Jesus is the only way to heaven, so in his brain, I am going to hell, but he still loves me, and I just don't put that pressure on my family to understand what I believe. I don't put that pressure on them. Their space is for us to be a family.
So I guess I'm the only one who wasn't raised in a religious household. I was raised by my mother, and I have two siblings, an older brother and older sister, and I'm the baby. But I'm also the black sheep because I'm the brainiac, I'm the sports nerd, I'm the book nerd, I'm the art nerd. So I never really was told that I couldn't do certain things because it was just like, I had the ability to do all of these things, so I'm going to go out here and do it. So that was always encouraged by my mother and by my friends and everybody that was around me in my life. As far as the homosexuality thing goes, I guess we could talk about that. I guess I figured it out on my own. Like, I didn't have the birds and the bees talk with my mother or anything like that, but it was just like, she knew when I was getting curious about it. She knew when I lost my V card. I wasn't going to be condemned, and I wasn't going to go to hell or anything like that. I used to go to church, honestly, and I talked about that with my my priest, and I went to confession. I talked about it, but it was never a huge deal in my life.
So I'm raised in a traditional Catholic household. I was, and my family is from the Philippines. My mother's from the Philippines. Very conservative around the issues of sex, sexuality. You don't talk about it, you don't do it. And I never had opportunity to discuss any feelings around sex, any questions that I had about sex or sexuality. The first time my mother knew I had sex was because I came home and I told her I was pregnant. So either that or I was married. So I introduced her to my boyfriend at the time, and it told her that I was pregnant. So then I wasn't a virgin anymore. Although I hadn't been for years prior, it was just not something that we talked about in our household. So I think that influence for some people, I'll even say my sisters. For my sisters, I think that just kept them very, very private about their sexual affairs. It kept them really just experiencing sex through the lens of the partner that they either are with or were with. and never really exploring outwardly. For me, it did the extreme opposite. I wanted more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know what I missed out on. I wanted to try things that I wasn't even really interested in, just because it was something new and it was sexy and other people were doing it, and I felt like I had these like blinders on for so many years and wasn't allowed to explore, even talk about it, or even ask questions. So it really just shaped, I think, who I am today, why I'm so immersed in sex and sexuality, because I'm free to explore. I'm allowed to ask questions. I can touch it, I can smell it, I can feel it. And it's a freedom that, you know, just wasn't available to me, or even, there wasn't even anything to model growing up. Let's think. When I started to become aware of my sexuality. It's really, it's a challenging question, because I experienced sexual abuse as a young child, 5 years old. And I wasn't aware that, I really wasn't aware of sexuality and sex and things like that at that point in time. But I do remember at that young age feeling my sexual organs for the first time. Feeling sexually stimulated, and it obviously was a feeling I've never had ever, even in, you know, in those small years. I wasn't a child that per se masturbated as a little girl, but I remember because of that incident, being aware of something that I hadn't been before, and associating that feeling with the activity that had taken place, that violation that had taken place. That was probably, you know, the first time that I felt, I guess, an element of sex in my body at 5. So fast forward, you know, it's a complicated relationship that I have in my head with that feeling and that incident. But I remember wanting to feel that again. I wanted to feel that rush in that area, in my private parts at that time. That was kind of what, that's how I referred to it. So I did learn to masturbate at a really young age, but it would be against furniture. I would never put my hands down there, because we didn't talk about sex growing up. But, you know, everything related to your private areas was nasty, or, you know, it's just to be cleaned, not talked about, not touched. But I, you know, just remember wanting to feel that overwhelming feeling that I had, minus the person that abused me. So I would rub up against furniture. I remember this, she's probably going to go nuts if and when she sees this, but rubbing, like trying to get close to my sister. We slept in the same bed, but like wanting to squeeze my legs against her legs without moving too much, so that way she didn't know what I was doing. And then she would just like shake me off. So yeah, this is probably like the first time that I'm recollecting that sexual feeling to being a young girl, and then progressing over time, where I was actually really aware of sexuality, was probably maybe 8th, 9th grade, starting to be attracted to boys, boys that were my age, and trying to have appropriate relationships, I guess, that you have at that age. But I never wanted to have sex with them. I wanted to get them so far and so close and so hot and bothered, and be done. So, and this carried on really into my adult life with edging. I love the flirting and the hot and heavy and the breathing and the desire, and then the letdown. It's absolutely exciting to me. So I really did this throughout from, you know, 8th grade probably, really on into college. I would have boyfriends, and I definitely was having sex with my boyfriends, but those that were in between, and the flirting, that was kind of my sexual identity, was teasing, and getting them to go as far as I possibly can get them, and then to watch them fall. So there's a long list of people that I made out with but never slept with. Sorry, guys.
I was pretty young, I think. Because I'm trying to think. There are moments where I looked at myself in the mirror sometimes and like, ooh, I got boobs. Are they going to get bigger? No. But like I can be sexy. I guess I was maybe 14. I wasn't exploring sex itself just yet, but I was aware of my body and I was aware that I could be a sexual individual. I don't know how that came to be, but just one day I woke up and just, I see it on TV, of course. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just like them. I'm kind of sexy. I'm cute. I'm pretty. I'm about to be a teenager.
From the time I was 6 until I was 12, was sexually abused, actually, by some family members that I'm no longer in contact with. So I was not interested in being sexy, obviously, because it was not a positive experience for me early on, at a time that obviously I definitely was not prepared. And then the interesting thing about it is my mother, she had my older sister when she was 19. So when I was 13, this is my mom having the kind of birds and the bees. She takes me to this novelty store, awesome trip, and she's like, this is this, and these are all the tools that you can use to explore and learn your body, and this is the anatomy of your body. We went through the books. My mother was also working at that time as a medical assistant, so everything was really kind of this medical terminology, but she also was very encouraging, you know, because she did not know that I was being sexually abused. So she learned that years later, but so she didn't know, so she's just doing her mom duties, you know, and trying to position me to not have to make the choices that she had to make so young. So she's, you know, explaining it, and this is your body and it's nothing to be ashamed of. If you want to take a longer shower, that's your business. But I was not interested, but I'm just, you know, here you are, this kid, and you're like, okay, cool, whatevs. All right, you know, you're just trying to get your mom through the, okay, get out, through the conversation. I don't think that for me, feeling sexy and my body, even though I became voluntarily sexually active in college, it wasn't a thing of feeling or being sexy for me until much later. Maybe I was 23 after my divorce, and then this whole new person was evolving out of myself, where I started to feel and like, oh, I'm bad, I'm sexy, whatever. Even though between that time I was still an exhibitionist and grappling with all these other aspects. It's a really bizarre situation.
It wasn't until later in life that I really started to think of myself as sexy and sexual. When I moved to Massachusetts at the age of 13, we had been living in Queens, New York, and then we moved to Massachusetts, and it was two completely different environments. I went from like an all Haitian and Black environment to pretty much an all white environment. And I think for me, that kind of stilted, that in combination with the whole Christianity thing, being in that environment, people, boys, didn't know how to react towards me. White boys, I didn't know how to react
Everybody
with them, especially because I didn't grow up with them. So I was just, you know, I just came into this space. So it was just kind of like, throughout high school, I didn't deal with sexuality. My first kiss, I was 20. And I freaked out. It was my boyfriend. We were going out, and we were in the car, and he came in for it, and I was like, it's happening. And so he kissed me, and I was just like, oh my God. Like, and we had to stop because I freaked out.
He was nearly in tears. He was only interrupted by her ad-libs. You love the way I suck it like a whore, don't you? Oh, I'm such a dirty little whore. Brenton was trying his best not to come.
But he was also the first person I had sex with, and it was amazing because he took it really slow. You know, the first time he's like, okay, I'm gonna go all the way. And he gave me an aphrodisiac, which ended up being orange juice and champagne cola mix. I was 20 or
Oh my
21.
God, classic.
So we just, took it incrementally until, we were, fully sexually active together, and it was wonderful. We were together for 2 years. And then I would say coming into sexuality happened for me maybe in law school, after the first boyfriend, after I realized, I can have sex with anybody. But one thing that I would say is interesting is that even though growing up totally Christian, I never felt like I shouldn't have sex. Like the whole fornication thing for me never made sense. I just always felt like when I'm ready, I will. And that's what happened. I never felt any guilt associated with sex, which I found interesting because I have, a lot of Christian friends who associate so much guilt with sex, and I've never had that. I don't know why.
So jealous.
Yeah, I don't know why.
You had no idea. Like my first serious boyfriend. Oh my God! And he knew that I was Christian, and his parents raised him Catholic, but he was not about that life, and so, and even his mother on the phone would be like, "Oh, don't ruin that nice girl. She's a nice Christian girl. Don't ruin her." And he's showing me, and he's very patient and making love with me, and always asking, checking with me, do you like this? And I'm like, I don't know, but you're doing it, so I don't know. Does it tickle? Does it? And I'm just we're trying to so much communication, and it was such a loving thing. I spent maybe 9 months trying to rationalize how can something so beautiful between two people who love each other be this sinful thing that is going to send me to hell. It took so long, and that was the beginning of the unraveling of Christianity for me. Nope, something doesn't fit here for who I am. And if that works for other people, I'm not saying don't be a Christian or it's bad. I'm just saying I couldn't rationalize it with myself of who I wanted to be in the world and what I was experiencing. So I'm jealous of you right now.
I have no way to explain it. I really don't.
I wasn't looking for someone to take my card, but I just happened to get into this relationship with an older individual, and we actually had a 5-year relationship. So I'm thankful for that. It wasn't took my B card and that's that. It was we're together for 5 years and he has my B card. So I got to learn about my sexuality through him as well, because he taught me you don't have to go out and explore if you don't need to explore. We can take our time. There are things that you're not ready for. So okay, you're not ready for handcuffs, yes.
Funny thing is, I don't remember my first time. You know why? I lied about not being a virgin so early. I was 11 years old. And then I will tell you what I now mark as my first time. At 11 years old, the girls were all talking about sex and what is it like? And I was like, I can answer this question. Technically, I've had sex before, just not in the conventional way or the way that they were talking about. But I felt like at that age of 11, I was already a sex expert. I was like, it's really not that bad. And I was really creating this story of, I bet you, what I wanted my first sexual experience to be. I created it, and so what happened is the girls were like, oh, well, she's had sex before, so ask her. And I also thought that there was a certain ownership in saying I had sex versus what was happening with the boys. They were going and tattling that they had sex with this girl and shaming her. But I figured if I owned it with this mystery person that no one can interview here at school, then I could kind of beat the stigma of someone else creating your story or you being shamed or hoe or slut. I've had this, I've been doing this, you guys are just now onto it. So I think that that's kind of funny looking back about being the answering the questions for people who were wondering about their own sex and sexuality as children, and here I am taking a bad situation and creating really who I am now. So, but the time that I really remember is my boyfriend. He was in 8th grade. Let's see. So, yeah, I think I was probably 12, 13. And Earl, it was on the beach, Hollywood Beach. We were supposed to be going to see a movie. So we would get dropped off at the movie theater, go to the beach instead of the movies. We had 2 hours to get it in and be ready to be picked up. I completely own that. He was a real respectful kid. Probably would have been okay with my edging antics, but I allowed it to go all the way, and it was okay. It wasn't as good as I was telling people, but it was okay. I like dry humping more than having sex, but we did it. From there, I was starting to learn the power of sex pretty early. It seemed like after I had sex with him, unlike a lot of people's situation where they've had sex with someone and then that person like left or whatever, I think because I was in control of when and how we were going to have sex, that I became in control of that relationship, really. So I was like, oh, this thing works. And it started to become more of, if they were asking for it, then I wasn't going to give it to them, because I could get them to do more things for me by not having sex with them. So, oh, give me a ride here. Pick me and my friends up. Bring me some food. You know, can you pick that up for me? Can you carry my books? Oh, this works. The more I don't give them what they're asking for, the better. And then those that are nice and gentlemen and not asking for it, just are happy to be around me, if I do give them sex, then they're going to be just so grateful. And so I'm like building this loyalty, which feeds itself into what now I love, dom and sub relationships and that power exchange around sex more than the act of sex itself. With my partner, I get really aroused by our work. And I think it's the excitement of something coming together and working together, that intimacy, the challenges that, like, when we have a project ahead of us and and it doesn't even have to be a sexy project. We can be putting up a bookcase and I'm like, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to read these instructions, or maybe we won't. But just to get the intimacy of doing something together, working together, and then having the finished product, it makes me feel good, makes me feel confident in our teamwork. That turns me on. From a more sexual standpoint, I like smell. Certain smells are real triggers for me. Natural scent. So, walking by a man that maybe just finished working out and is kind of mixed a little bit with his cologne and whatever soap or fabric or soap he uses for his clothes, that's very arousing. With women, what arouses me around women? Confidence, but still a very ladylike quality. And those are turn-ons. Those are turn-ons for me.
Well, I would say intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is very, it definitely turns me on. And also ambition. A person who's ambitious and who's doing their thing and who's intelligent and who's comfortable in their body, that turns me on. It's funny because I've always dated men who had their own businesses, who were entrepreneurs, who were doing their own thing, because I love talking about business. And that turns me on. Like, it does. It's weird, but it does. Like,
it's mad funny. Like,
in my current relationship, that's really what got things like past the first night. I was like, oh, and he does all of this, and he can speak, and
yeah,
yeah,
that's hilarious. This is gonna sound maybe possibly weird, but like men in combat, oh Lord, hallelujah! Somebody better go ahead. It's just, I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just kind of that primal aspect of being mammals. It's just like, look at you and your warrior flow, like, and it doesn't have to be physical combat either. Like watching a guy negotiate or stand up for something, like, yo, this is happening, because I'm very non-confrontational. It's like, oh, it's on. Like, did you see him just boss on that? Yes. And for women, it's just women who are confident, women who are, there's something about a woman, like, and you can watch it in the gait of her walk, and you'll be like, oh, this bitch right here. Woo, she could get it.
And I love to be taught new things because I crave experience and I crave knowledge, and I want to explore everything I can in this universe while I'm still alive. But I also love seeing humanity in people, because even if you're not the brightest bulb, you have some other form of intelligence. Like, there are people who are street smart and people who are book smart. And like, I see through individuals, like at their core, like you have that beautiful humanity within you, that you care about other beings. Like, that shit's just like, yes, I can see through that brick wall. I see through that hood surface. I see through the bougie surface. Like, I see that heart within you. Like, I love that stuff. But certain individuals, I love tall men. I have a thing for muscles because I run and I dance, so I love fitness. And when it comes to women, I guess I just love other artists. Like, you stand for the same things I stand for with women's empowerment, and you're an artist as well, whether you dance or you write. Like, you're a creative human being. I love that. And if you can dress fly, yes, honey.
So on a man's body, I like veins. A man that has really good veins means he's hydrated well and he's healthy. It's an indicator. I also like the hip bone on a man. Not necessarily the V, but the actual hips. I don't know. I like to touch them and squeeze them, and yeah, that's what I like a lot. I like to look at men's veins. For women, or even on my own body, what's something that I gravitate towards when I'm looking at women? I like arms. I like my own arms. I like getting ready and doing something with my hair. I've always liked my arms. I like the soft feeling in the inside of my arm. I feel like when I need comfort, I will go to this area. It's really sensitive. So yeah, I like the inner part of my arms. Behind the knees, I've learned that is a very, very hot spot. My partner calls it my leg-gina. And if you touch it just right, it has the same effect. Clitoral stimulation. Yeah. Usually that's the first way. The first orgasm I have is probably usually through clitoral stimulation. It could just be rubbed on continuously, and I will have an orgasm. And then from there, just deeper penetration. But it's got to be deep. It's got to be deep. It either comes from up here, or on top. So, I don't have to discriminate because I'll have an orgasm either way.
Oh, man. Being told to do so.
Lord.
Yes. Like, yes, it's happening.
Why do I have to think about this? Because they're not bad.
Well, I would say for me, there's a very surefire way. I love fingers. I'm actually not that much into oral. But fingers down there, we'll do it every time.
You just had a moment right there. Marinate.
I can come from intercourse as well, and I have, and it's been amazing. But I think I get lazy because the fingers are so easy. So
I love it.
yeah. But when it comes to masturbation, I've tried. I was successful once. And that was when I was fantasizing about this massage that I had. That was amazing, this full body massage. But yeah, once my fingers go down there, I get dry.
That I prefer masturbating with my partner. Like, he doesn't have to do any of the work. I just want him to be there, or like kiss my neck, or like something up here while I'm handling the downstairs, and just hearing his voice or her voice in my ear. Like, that is a much better situation than just me by myself, because it is a lot of work. Like, you gotta get the right memory or video, and we're not even finding good porn. Believe it or not, it's hard to find. And so it's like, I just rather, like, it's just something about the synergy of the other person that helps bring the stimulation up for me. But I definitely am like totally love oral. I definitely climax more frequently from oral than penetration, and I wouldn't blame that on my partners necessarily. It's just that I like the feel of penetration, but it's not something for me that's like, oh my god, this is it right here. Like, it just But I think that also, if you think about the woman anatomy, our clitoris is basically the equivalent of the male's head of the penis. So it makes sense that the penetration, like hitting that G spot every time for a guy, that's a lot of you got to target practice because every woman's shape is different. You know, there's a lot of work to be asking. Shoot, sometimes I can't even get my own damn G-spot and it's mine. Like, so I can't imagine, you know, I don't have those expectations of people.
So I love lesbian porn. That will do it every single. I love trip videos. If you don't know what tripping is, I suggest you look it up. But it just takes me into a whole nother world. I guess I can show you. It's basically just scissoring, you know. Basically.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
And I absolutely love doing it. Now, if I'm with a man, I love penetration, but I love oral as well. If you can do it right, that's the key. Because I have been with individuals who are not successful, and I'm just like, we'll switch. But there are those who come once in your life who are just the most amazing beings ever.
I love it.
And as far as masturbation, hell yes. Whatever toys I'm going to play with at the moment, then that'll just get me off. I don't know why I can do it for myself, just like, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
But I've never masturbated with a partner before, so
That's pretty awesome.
I have to put that
on the bucket list.
I don't know if it's because I'm shy. I'll get up in stirrups and handcuffs and do it with people, but I have never masturbated with somebody. I don't know what that is about, but I'm gonna try to break that barrier.
Speaking about videos, I actually get turned on from gay male porn.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's
so,
interesting. As I said, I'm super stubborn. So, I guess being overly aggressive when I don't want you to be. I'm big on consent. So, I expect people to understand things. I will teach people if they do or say the wrong thing. But there are certain individuals who should come with this knowledge before they approach a man or a woman. Especially when it comes to the things that you may say or the things that you may do physically. If you're in some kind of social settings like a club or an event and you're trying to approach an individual, perhaps you should stop and think about what you're going to do, if you're going to touch them in certain ways, or if you're going to ask inappropriate questions. Stop and think about that. So, yeah, that's my free lesson to y'all out there.
How do you word it? It's these little things that people can do that can make you just start to shut down. So a big one for me that just comes to mind, and I'm not sure the best way to frame it, is when you're not listening to the details. Like sex is something you're doing with a person. So you have to really be attentive to details. And I think people can easily throw that out the window and they think, well, I'm here, right, and my penis is hard, or you're wet and that's supposed to be it. But there's a lot more that happens. Like, I could get wet because my vagina has just been waxed and it's getting a little more exposure than it normally does, but it doesn't mean that I'm turned on. So you have to really listen to the context, not just the body. And when you're not in that space with a person for whatever reason, that's when things start to break down. And it's just not, it's the Estee Lauder, it's not happening. It's collection, like, it's not going down.
insecurity. That just that's like the biggest turnoff. And so that's whether it's in the bed, whether it's when we're interacting out in the open, just insecurity, just like go over there.
I call myself a human sexual just to put a label on it, but I don't like to, because I like men and I like women and I like human beings who don't identify with a specific gender. As long as you have a dope soul and I'm attracted to you in some way, then I'm going to go for you. And as far as, just interacting with people on a daily basis, sometimes they'll ask me if they're trying to approach me for a date or something. So, are you in a relationship? Are you bi, straight? I'm just like, I'm a human sexual who's open. I guess, am I poly? I don't know. I'm just exploring right now. So we're going to leave that line blank. Human sexual.
Yeah, people have a hard time with that a lot.
Yeah.
They always want to try to label you. I don't consider myself bi. I don't consider myself lesbian. My boyfriend's like, but you're gay. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a person. I'm a human being. He had a hard time early of like, well, so just as dealing with his security, like, so you're going to sleep with everybody? I have to worry about men and women? I'm like, that's not how any of this works. I feel like the e-shirts commercial, that's not how it works. Like, I'm a human being, regardless of what I'm attracted to, or who I'm attracted to, I should say. It doesn't mean that I just walk around, like, turned on all day long, and I'm going to sleep with everything walking. Like, I'm still choosy about who I interact with and what goes into my body, and that includes sexually. So I don't know where he would get that. So I think from a day-to-day perspective, especially in the line of work of eroticism, there's this belief that people have that somehow you're sleeping, you're horny all day, you sleep with everyone and anyone, and it's so far from the truth. Like, even when I was single, like, seriously single for years at a time, it wasn't like after every show, let's go find somebody and jump bones. Like, never. Like, first of all, I'm usually too tired. For one, this is my job, no matter how fun it is. But for two, like, I don't know you. And there's a thing for me of, even on one night stands, there's something that has to draw us. There has to be some connection before I'm going to be like, yep, that's the one. It's very, very rare. I can count on a single hand that I've just not known anything about a person and just had a sexual interaction and then never spoke to them again on one hand, because it's just, I'm just that picky. I like the connection of it more than I like the physicality of it.
And it's interesting, I just want to interject. I find that a lot of people who identify as cis and straight, they seem to think that we have this stigma, like she said, that we're horny individuals. Just because you like another gender doesn't mean you're out fornicating with as many people as you can. Like, no, we love basic relationships. We love monogamy, and we love poly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that you have to be with multiple individuals. Like, if you don't want to be in a monogamous relationship, you don't have to be with 20 different people at once. You can still identify as poly and have one partner. Let's just clear that stigma up right away.
Definitely.
I don't know. I guess, yeah, I would consider myself heterosexual. But I don't know if that's true. I mean, I've been attracted to women. I've been with women. But I'm not attracted to relationship with women. So that's why I consider myself heterosexual. I actually enjoy anonymous sex. I used to, I like one night stands and like no connection after. That's always been easy for me. Like, for me to separate sex and emotion has always come to me pretty easily. So I guess because of that also, being with women, it can just be whatever I'm attracted to that evening or that day.
It's free. It's really free. Yeah, I don't have a particular way to describe it. I consider myself to be a switch. There's some times when I like to be dominant sexually, and other times when I like to be submissive. Right now, I think I'm exploring more about Fetish Week, exploring really about bringing other people into the mix. So whether threesomes or directing people sexually, I'm getting a lot of pleasure. Have a lot of my sisters with sexuality. We're working on just trying little different pieces about where we specialize, what we specialize in. So some of the ladies have been taking some direction from me sexually, and because we have a really nice relationship, they call me after and like, oh, it went down like this, or I got him tied up, and I'm like, send me a picture, girl. So really the fun in sexuality, and it's something that you could actually share with people that you're not having sex with. It's exciting.